Today, we are talking about conscious parenting and co-parenting and how to get on the same page with your partner and their ex.
I'm Cameron. I spent years building my career and creating a life I loved. And when my Prince Charming finally showed up, he had 4 kids in tow. Fast forward through lots of mistakes made and lessons learned, step-family life was much more complicated than I realized. If you're looking for help with blended family life, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Stepmom Diaries, where we keep it real as we dish about all the things. This is your weekly dose of blended family inspiration and encouragement. You're not the wicked stepmother, so let me help you find your fairy tale ending. Come on, let's do this.
Welcome. So in our last episode, we had a great conversation with Katie Davies about co-parenting. And today I'm actually back with another conversation around co-parenting. This time we are talking about conscious parenting, what that means, and what co-parenting looks like when you are parenting consciously. And co-parenting is really a loaded term, right, as stepmoms, because we are co-parenting with our partner in our household, but we're also co-parenting with their ex, and that can be filled with so many landmines. So I thought it was really worth having another discussion about it this week, and I think you'll really enjoy today's guest. Before we get started, can I ask you a favor? Would you consider going to iTunes and leave me a rating, or even better, a review? It will take just a few seconds, and literally every single rating and review I get helps me reach more and more stepmoms just like you. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. Today's guest is Mikki Gardner. She is a conscious parenting coach. She is the host of the Co-Parenting with Confidence podcast, and she's a mom of 3, her biological son and 2 bonus sons. After learning how to navigate her life post-divorce and using it as a catalyst to her own transformation, Mikki now helps moms move past the divorce drama to become calm and confident co-parents. She has built a wonderful relationship with her ex's new partner, and she has built a blended family where they can actually vacation together and raise happy children. I cannot imagine vacationing together. That's amazing. She is on a mission to help women navigate the emotional and practical difficulties of divorce and co-parenting while creating an intentional, joy, and ease-filled life after divorce. So let's dive in. Mikki, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here.
Oh, Cameron, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you and your beautiful audience.
Yes. And so I mentioned in your intro that this is the second episode in a row that we're talking about co-parenting. And part of that is just the way that timing works out. But part of it is because co-parenting is really challenging and stepmoms have to deal with it sort of from 2 different angles, right? Like they have to deal with co-parenting with their partner, but then also with this other household. I feel like there's just going to be so much to talk about. But before we dive in, I always love to ask, so you are a mom who gets the co-parenting with the other household, but you're also a stepmom. So you understand the co-parenting from that perspective too. So I always like to ask my guests, what's your stepmom origin story? How did you become a stepmom? How'd you meet your partner and all that good stuff?
So my partner and I met actually at the kids' hockey. So when they were younger. And so we were sort of in the stands together and met. They ended up being our oldest. We're at the same school, which when they were younger, we thought, this is awesome, right? Everything's sort of same. And so we have 2 that are about to turn 13. And so it's,
Now, were they friends? Were they like, oh my God, I can't believe you're dating my dad kind of thing?
No, they weren't. They sort of knew each other, but they're very different children. They always, while they have hockey in common, they are very different children, which, each child is so different. And then there's a younger one. So there's also a 9-year-old. And we also have a male dog. So my mom says I live in testosterone camp, which I kind of agree with at this point.
Yeah, you're brave.
I'm surrounded by all men. But yeah, so I think, I I'm a co-parenting coach. I focus on co-parenting. That is I think sort of my primary focus as a mom and as a co-parent. But then being a bonus mom is, that's a whole nother level of complexity and different rules of engagement, as I call it. And so, to me, co-parenting is really when you are parenting with anyone you don't agree with 100% of the time. So that's kind of like all the time. And I like to tell my clients, because we always think, oh, it's the divorce that has caused all of this conflict and all of the different styles. No, you were bound to have those anyway, in one house or in two houses. And so really learning how to co-parent, how to be a stepmom, to me, it all starts at the same place, which is really understanding you and grounding yourself so that you can have a more centered approach.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about that, because you like to talk about getting clear on, like you said, your values and what your vision as a parent is going to be. And that's something I talk about with my stepmoms too. And it can be kind of challenging to sort of take a step back and think about what your values are and and what your partner's values are. So how does that look? How does that play out when you're co-parenting with your partner, but then you're also supporting them as they co-parent with their ex?
Yeah. So, I feel for you, right? That's the big one. So I want to step back a couple steps here, because I'm a certified conscious parenting coach. And so I really do come from the conscious parenting sort of style, if you will. The way that I define that, it does not mean perfect parenting by any stretch of the imagination. It simply means that you are aware of what you are doing and why you're doing it, even when that awareness comes after the fact. So we're just looking to be conscious, which means awake, right? It's like in the airplane, they always say, put your oxygen mask on first. Why? So that you stay conscious, right? So that you have the ability to help others. So I really think that it all starts there, as being able to be awake, to be grounded, to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, because that is when you are more centered, less reactive, and able to co-parent and able to support your partner while they're co-parenting. And I think the number one thing that I see just across the board, I think we're seeing more and more and more evidence of it, is living in a reactive mode. And
oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah, right? Everyone's just reacting. We're like open wounds, just getting poked and sort of open nerves. But a lot of times we think of being in a reactive state as yelling, conflict, throwing things, these huge, giant reactions. And yes, that is a reactive state. But also living in a reactive state is when we're not grounded, when we aren't conscious of what's going on, and maybe we give in just to avoid the fight. Maybe we say yes when we really mean no. Maybe we have loose or no boundaries because we don't know how to hold them. All of these things are really being reactive. I always say that it's like living in a pinball machine. You're just trying to avoid the metal paddles and all the bright lights and the balls flying at you, right? We don't want to live like that. And so that's
I love that analogy.
Parenting. Yeah, it's what it feels like, right? You're just
and I think especially as stepmoms, yes, like everything can get chaotic, and I think that there's already so much of your life that's out of your control, and then you have I love the pinball because it does it. Stuff is coming at you all the time, and you're always having to deal with it. I love that.
Yeah, so that's always our first signal because I know when I feel like I'm in pinball mode, right? My heart rate is up. I'm nervous. I'm agitated. I'm sort of like on edge. Those are all signals that my body is sending me that I need to ground myself, right? That I'm out of consciousness, that I'm sort of just reacting to the world, and I need to become responsive. And I teach my clients how to become 100% responsible for their life. And responsible, I define as able to respond to life, right? The ability to respond is your responsibility. And so that's really what I focus on helping my clients with, and what I talk about, on my podcast, and why I want to share the message, because when we're in reaction, we feel like the world is happening to us, but we have far more control than we ever think we do. But we have to understand what we have control over and then start to actually empower ourselves to use it.
I love that. And so talk a little bit about, I mean, I think the control issue is huge. And I think figuring out, what you have control over and what you don't. And then, so once you sort of figure that out, once you sort of can have that sort of inner dialogue, right? How do you, as a stepmom and a mom, how do you get clear on, what your vision is, and how do you deal with it if your partner's got a different vision or a different set of values?
Yes. So navigating different parenting styles,
navigating
different opinions, right? Different values, right? This happens all the time. I mean, I know that my ex and his wife have different values on some things than I have, right? My partner has different values than I do. So a lot of that is really learning how to, again, ground yourself and understand, what are my expectations? The one thing that gets us more screwed up than anything in life is our expectations. Because
oh my gosh, reach it.
An expectation is simply a picture in your mind of how you think things should be happening. When you start shoulding on yourself, you've got some expectations going on. So there's what should be happening, right? This expectation, and these pictures in our mind, they're so vivid, they're so clear. I mean, we know exactly how everyone should act so that everything's perfect, right? Like in our mind, if they would just do
it. And if only everyone would go by that playbook, life would be so much easier.
I know. Why don't they do it? I don't understand. I'm still trying to figure that out. But so we have this expectation, but then we have reality. We have what is actually happening. And it's the mismatch between the two where we experience the most suffering. And so to be able to navigate different parenting styles, we first and foremost, we always start with you. Meaning, what is the expectation that I'm holding? And how does it differ from reality? Because when we can start to parse those two things out, we start to see really more of what's going on. And that's really, I talk about 3 steps of conscious co-parenting. Awareness is the first one, right? That ability to pause and reflect, pause and understand what is actually happening here. We have to get ourselves out of reactivity to do that, right? When we're all worked up, when we're all in that expectation in our head and we're having the inner dialogue, right? Where it's sort of racing, we have to be able to calm our nervous system down to get ourselves out of that reaction place and get our thinking mind back online. So once we've done that, once we've started to understand, okay, so I have this expectation or I think things should be going, the second step is agency. And agency is really simply the choices that you actually have available. And amazingly enough, the universe made it super simple for us because there's only 3. So you only ever have 3 choices.
I love this.
Something.
Okay.
I know, right? We can accept it, we can change it, or we can leave it. Acceptance means, can I accept this situation exactly as it is, right? Without changing anything or anyone. And can I do that without anger, resentment, bitterness? If you can do that, awesome, right? Accept and move on. But we both know, especially in the stepmom role, it's kind of hard to do that sometimes when it's so frustrating. So you go to the change. Can I change it? Is there something I can do to change or shift the situation? Not can I change the other person, not can I change the child, but can I do something to shift this? If so, and it's aligned with your values, sort of values and vision are always those things that are the big picture foundation. So if you can change and it's aligned with that, awesome, go there, right? Go in that direction. The last one is if you can't accept and you can't change, well, then leaving may be the only option. That does not mean that we pack our stuff up and we head out the door every time there's a problem. But leaving can also be figuratively. If there is a text exchange going on with the other, sometimes people have group text with the other co-parents and the stepmom, and maybe it starts to get heated and you're about to go in, right? Maybe the thing is, if you can't accept it and you can't change it, you simply leave it. And you say, I will not participate in a conversation of disrespect and blame. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. And boom, you're out. That is also that is a boundary, but that's also accepting the agency that you actually have, right? Because we only have those three. And then the third step of conscious co-parenting is really taking aligned action. So based on your awareness, based on the choices that you have available, how are you going to take that 100% responsibility over your 50% of any relationship that you're in? And so it's sort of a simple framework. I didn't say easy, but it's really the process of learning how to ground yourself, be aware of what are my choices, and then making those choices that are really aligned with who you are, with what you believe, and what matters to you most.
And so first of all, I love the framework. I love breaking it down into those simple steps. And I'm glad that you said that doesn't mean easy. Simple does not always mean easy.
No.
What happens when your partner disagrees with your assessment?
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's got to happen because, like, it's, as you said, I mean, co-parenting is when you're not always on the same page, which is all of us at different times, right, with our partners.
Absolutely. And I think this is where that vision and your values come into play. There are things that you cannot agree with each other, but is it really the hill that you're going to die on? Like, is it really the one that you're going to march up and you're going to really go for? Or sometimes we just end up fighting for fighting's sake because we feel like nobody's listening. So I'm just going to fight every battle that comes my way, right? All of these things are setting us up to continue the reaction and moving forward in a way that isn't necessarily aligned versus you knowing very clearly, this is what is important to me. This is what matters to me. These are my priorities. And I actually go through, this is the first thing I do with my clients is we start to create the vision of who you want to be, right? That version of you who is really living in alignment with what she believes. She's showing up the way that she wants to. And this can be a big, right? Some people are like, I don't even know, right? We've gotten so disconnected. So we have to really start to take some time and decide, what is it? Who is it that I want to be? And a great question to ask yourself if you're struggling with this vision is just asking yourself and writing it down, like set a timer for 10 minutes and keep answering the same question, which is, wouldn't it be nice if? Because when you start to do that, you start to notice what matters to you, what is truly important. And you can start to understand and build yourself kind of, again, it's like a lighthouse. You know how lighthouse is always moving around. So even in the stormiest of seas, even when everything is dark and scary, you'll see that light coming to you and you know, okay, I'm heading in that direction. And that's really what our values and our vision do for us is we might not know how to get there, but we know that we want to go that direction. So we're going to keep taking steps towards it. And we know if we're going away from it, we're going away from what we desire. Now, how does this help us in when there's different parenting styles, when there's conflict? Well, this work is really meant not to make the conflict stop, but it's teaching you how to contend with it differently so that you're not sidelined, so that you're not drowning underwater, so that you can stay afloat and continue to go towards what you want. And so it really comes down to you learning how to simply decide what is most important to you and then getting really good at learning how to let go of what doesn't matter to you.
Which is sometimes the hardest part.
Every battle, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Every battle feels like the most important battle.
Absolutely. But that's where we have to be really honest with ourselves. Am I fighting for fighting's sake? Or is this really the issue that I'm willing to go down this road on? And if
or am I fighting because something else is going on? You know, I mean, sometimes what you're fighting about isn't really what you're fighting about. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And that's where our expectations really have to be sort of pulled apart. And where we have to be more centered and aware, right? Again, aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because often when we're reacting, it's like everything gets thrown in the soup, right? It's like everything's
totally
instead of just trying to deal with the one ingredient in front of us.
Totally. So you've mentioned boundaries a couple of times, and I think especially for us stepmoms, right, they're really important. So let's talk a little bit about how to, identify the boundaries you need, and then how to honor those boundaries with your partner, but also with the other co-parent, depending on what those boundaries are. Because I know sometimes as stepmoms, you have to set boundaries that are related to the other house, but they very much impact your partner. And you have to like navigate how that impacts them and their reactions to it.
Yeah. So I think it's always good to start with what is a boundary and what isn't. A boundary is not an ultimatum or a way to change someone else. A boundary is 100% about what you will do in response to any situation, person, place, thing. So it's almost like a property line that you draw around yourself, saying, if this happens, I will do this, right? That isn't, what you will do, or you have to stop doing this thing. It's really about you being very clear on, okay, there is a boundary that's necessary. I'm not feeling heard. I'm not feeling seen. There's something that fundamentally, or I disagree with my values. So again, we go through the same process of what can I accept it? Can I change it, or can I leave it? And really leaving is in this boundary category, is saying, I am going to do what I need to do to take care of me, and learning how to make decisions, let other people be disappointed by those decisions. That's a doozy, right? And loving yourself no matter what to hold that boundary. And really what this takes is the skill of emotional management. What that means is simply being able to manage your emotions without reaction, right? This is where we get out of the pinball machine, right? And we can watch it without reacting to it all the time. And so we have to learn to become uncomfortable without the reaction. That is the skill of adulting, right? And that is the skill that our children need to learn most from us. And so
Totally.
For them to learn it from us, we can't say it. We actually have to be the example of it. Kids do not learn what is told to them. They learn what they see. And so really learning how to be an example of what you want is so important. And this doesn't mean not saying what matters to you. If there is a disagreement and you fundamentally disagree with maybe a rule or something that's going on, you're allowed to have that opinion. You're allowed to say, actually, this completely doesn't align with me. I don't agree with it. I will not participate in it. But it also means that you're not going to try to manipulate, that you're going to talk down or blame or shame anyone. Like, I'm just thinking, let's say one person really wants the kid to play baseball and the kid wants to play baseball, and the other person does not like baseball. This was like an example, a personal example. We joke about it because our kids are hockey players. There's a set, it's an hour and a half. Yes, you're cold for an hour and a half, but it's just an hour and a half. So you can get through it. Baseball's like hours.
Oh, hours I've done the baseball thing. It is hours.
Yeah, hours. So I think he was 11 at the time, came and said, I'm going to do baseball this summer. And we were like, no baseball. No baseball.
You're right? Like, we can't handle baseball.
Right. So he's like, no, I'm going to do it. So I said to him, listen, I want to be really clear with you guys. And he's like, what's going on? I said, I'm not a baseball person. I'm not spending 6 hours of my day on the one day that I may or may not get off work. I'm not spending it in the hot sun watching you for 10 minutes. Right. And I said, I am all for dropping you off and picking you up, but I will not be your fan club there at every game. So as long as you understand that and you are okay with that, and we both agree, I'm all in to drop you off, but I'm not sitting there. And he looked at me and he said, that's so mean, Mikki. And I said, is it? Because it's taking care of me. So I'm not upset and angry while I'm sitting there for 6 hours on a Saturday. Right. But I'm telling you up front, it's just not for me. And I'm going to be okay with that. And I hope you can be okay with it. And I still love you. I still love you, and I will drop you off and pick you up. And it was very funny because he walked away and was like, And my partner was like, that was brutal, Mikki. And I was like, because I was just being honest, right? And loving. Right. But it was a boundary that I was setting. And this is kind of a silly example, but not. Because when we have something that we can't get on board with and we sit there annoyed, overwhelmed because we're sitting there for 6 hours, angry, resentful, I guarantee you that is going to trickle out somewhere else. So instead, I just said, here's my boundary. Here's what I can do and what I can't do. And you let me know how I can help. And, thank goodness he chose not to do baseball. But, it was like one of those moments where I had to be really clear. And I did it in the most loving way possible. But I think while that's a sort of benign example, it applies to all the things. What can you do and what can't you do? And how can you do it showing up in a way that is authentic, in integrity, and honest with yourself? Because when you're taking care of yourself and doing that and holding those boundaries, you show up more loving, more present, more accepting and open. Again, to say to your partner, he might say, I absolutely am doing this baseball thing. Okay, do the baseball thing, but I'm not, right? And then it's the work of you being uncomfortable, not letting the guilt get to you, not letting all the self-doubt, all the negative self-talk, oh, you're being really bad. Oh, you should have done that, right? All of that. No, I'm honoring what's important here for me, and I'm going to be okay with that. And so it's really that ability to become uncomfortable without either negating yourself or giving in. And
I think that can be the hardest part around boundaries, right? Like I know
1,000%.
I had to set one not too early on. I mean, maybe a year or two into my marriage where it had gotten to where the conflict with the other house was so bad that I was like, I can't, for my own anxiety and sanity, I can't go to the drop-off pickups. I can't be there and deal with the ex and do all that. Like that needs to be, you need to do that. And my husband was kind of like, wait, you're leaving me high and dry here. And I'm like, no, I will be at home ready to receive, and I will be positive and happy and excited to see the kids. And otherwise it's going to be, I'm a basket of anxiety and irritated, and I don't have a good poker face. So everybody's going to pick up on that. So it's just better for everyone if we do this. But it was really hard because, you're dealing with your partner's disappointment and they want to relate. And like you said, you have to sort of honor where you are and say, look, this really is better for everybody.
Yeah. So that 100%. I love that you brought up that example, because I also think it's really about learning how to let go of the control, right? You couldn't control that situation, but you standing up and saying, no, this is what I can do. This is how I can show up best, and honoring who you are. I guarantee, right? It's like everybody wants to be an influencer, right? On social media now. Be an influencer in your own home. Be an influencer of change and positivity and self-regulation and responsiveness versus reactivity. And that's what you did. And whenever we do that and we show up, we can't help but shift the energy in a more positive direction. So I always like to tell people, like, let's not focus on controlling the outcome, because we actually don't know what's supposed to happen. But let's just be the influencer of positive change, of moving in the direction that is loving and strong, right? That is the direction that we want to go. And so I love that you brought that up, because you did that, right? You were the influencer staking a claim saying, not anymore. I won't participate in this. You get to do whatever you want, but I can't. And that's
and doing it in a loving way. I think that, I'm glad you said that, because I think that's important too, because it's not about it being punitive. It's not about, all of that. It is about creating a loving environment that, that's
where a boundary is really about you, right? Not about like, I love that you brought that up, because it's not about the other person or hurting them or controlling them. It's really all about how you are going to show up. And so that's a loving place to come from.
I love that. So when should someone think about bringing in a professional to help them with all this stuff? Because I think it can be really overwhelming, and, people can certainly benefit, whether it's a therapist or a coach or whatever. When do you think the tipping point is? When should a couple look for someone to come help, or a stepmom or a mom?
Yeah, I think really it depends on sort of how if you're finding yourself not able to show up, not able to speak up, feeling like you're underwater and have no control, those are all signs that you are in full reaction, right? And so you need some support in learning how to navigate all of this. Before we started recording, I always joke that really it feels like it's not a joke. It does. Co-parenting and blended families, this stuff is not for the faint of heart. And it's like a full contact sport. And so you would never see a football team go onto the field without a game book, without rules of engagement, without practicing, without being properly padded up in a helmet. But somehow we think we're just supposed to know how to do this. And it starts.
I love that analogy. It's so true.
It's so true. But here's the hardest part. You're on the same team with all the people that are making you crazy. You guys aren't on opposing teams. You're on the same side of the field with the same kids. So it's like, are we looking at fighting against each other as if they're the other team? Or can we change our perspective? Can we change our mindset to realize we're all on the same team? Can we sit side by side and look out at the field and decide what we're going to do from that level? It's really a change in perspective. And so I feel like whenever you feel like everything is coming at you, we need to shift your mindset. We need to shift your perspective. We need to help you. And this is where a coach or a mentor or a therapist, right, can really help do that. But it's not talking to people who don't know. Glennon Doyle says, stop asking for directions from people who have never been there, right? Having a coach or a mentor who has walked the journey ahead of you, invaluable, right? It's why I do what I do now, because 8 years ago when I got divorced, I didn't know anyone out there, right? I was stuck under so much shame and blame that I did it all on my own. And it was a long, painful journey. So really, I like to be able to walk side by side with my clients as their mentor so that we can navigate the emotional ups and downs. So I can teach them the skills and then actually help them practice it. It's like the coach on the field. We have Voxer in between sessions. So I give Voxers every day, okay, here's what's going on. Here's the text I got. Here's how I want to react, right? What do I do? And we walk through that, because it's one thing for me to sit here and say, okay, here's the simple 3 steps. But it's a totally different game when you actually have to use them in your own life. And that is where having someone alongside of you to help you with the practical difficulties and complexity of co-parenting, of stepmomming, of all of these things is invaluable. And I am a proponent always of investing your time, your money, and your energy into whatever it is that's going to help you be the best version of you.
I totally agree. Well, so tell us where everybody can find you. And I know, I think you mentioned that you have got a little gift for our listeners, a masterclass. So tell us about that too.
Yeah. So I decided to put together a sort of a quick start conscious co-parenting. And it's really the 3 simple steps that we talked a little bit about here today, but it's how to get you out of reaction. And when we're in reaction, we're inevitably making decisions we'll regret later, and learning how to take full responsibility in your co-parenting, right? It's that simple strategy to help you handle the chaos that's inevitable with confidence and grace. And so they can, maybe you could put it in the show notes, but it's just at my website, which is my name, Mikki Gardner. It's Mikki Gardner.
And we will put all these links in the show notes for sure.
Thank you. And Instagram, I'm on Instagram. I love connecting with people over there too. And it's the same, just Mikki Gardner. So I kept it easy. A little complicated on the spelling, but that's all right.
I understand complicated names. People always get mine wrong, so I get it. But I will definitely make sure that all of your information is in our show notes, which you can find at thiscustomlife.com/episode 61. Mikki, thank you so much. This was like just nonstop information. I feel like I'm going to go back and listen to this once it's finished, once we edit it and everything. And I feel like people that are listening should listen to it maybe a couple of times too. I feel like there's just a lot here. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Cameron. And thank you for all you're doing. I love your message and how you're talking about all of this because it's complex and it's scary. And having people like you being a bright light and shining sort of other options and views are so important. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you.
That's it for this week. If you've enjoyed our chat, I hope you'll help spread the word. Share this episode with friends and head on over to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave me a review. And don't forget, for more great stepmom content, head on over to thiscustomlife.com and follow me on social media. Just search This Custom Life on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Until next time, you keep being you and know that we are in this together. See you here next week.